Everybody, welcome back to Critical Minds. This is the same as last time. It's just a part 3. Hopefully this one won't last as long. And with that, let's get back into it. Alright, where we left off, they figured out who the dead body actually was. You know, he wasn't the guy from the prison. He is this guy named, I want to say Steven? And he lives in an apartment with his wife and his son. And so Detective Olivia and Elliot go to the apartment to go talk to her. So when they get to this apartment, they talk to her. They tell her, you know, oh, I'm sorry, your husband is dead. And she, like, okay, she has great emotional expression. It's just the execution of it isn't really the greatest. I kind of wish she had more control over it in a better way, because I don't really feel like this is really how someone would react to that. Like, the way she reacted to that made me think that she did it, you know? Like, she's overreacting to compensate for her, you know, murderingness. But, you know, we don't know if she killed her or not yet. But anyway, you know, she reacts. She literally falls on Elliot like she's swooning over, like, this, like, fantastic man, and, like, this is the 1920s or something, you know? So, you know, he catches her, Olivia consoles her, and they're like, well, I guess this is all we can really do right now. I mean, we could talk to her, but, you know, she's kind of emotional. So, they give her some time, whatever, and, they go back to CSU, and CSU is like, oh, we got a fingernail in the backseat of your taxi. So I'm looking at this whole ass nail, and I'm like, did someone just, like, rip off their nail in the backseat of this taxi? And I'm like, okay, maybe it's an acrylic nail, but if it's a real nail, you can grab all that DNA and find out who killed them, right? But anyway, you know, they explain that, you know, when you stab somebody, I guess your nail can fall off if you're stabbing them too hard or something. You know, they go more into the investigation, and they find out that this dude that died is like a war criminal or something. Like, he was doing some sort of, like, ethnic cleansing, which is like code for genocide. Like, let's not lie here, this is genocide. Okay. And he was like a rapist, and there's like a bunch of victims in the area. And I'm like, are you telling me that, like, these women of, like, that he used to rape in, like, I think it was like Serbia or something, you know, like, are living, like, right around near this guy? Like, that must be terrifying for them. But anyway, the police are like, okay, it's probably one of these ladies, which I can kind of understand. Anyway, they all go out looking for these victims to, you know, see their alibis to see if they killed this dude. And the first woman is this blind lady who was blinded because of what he did to her. And Olivia is looking at her like, okay, first of all, it's not her. And second of all, like, I just want you to know, like, this man that did this to you is dead. And she is just like, she is praising her God. She is happy. And I'm like, I'm so happy that she got justice in, like, her own way, for her to be able to get, like, closure and everything. And it's a nice feeling that you get when, like, a criminal is gone in the show, and you're like, you know, thank God they don't have to do this anymore. I mean, yes, you still need to find justice, and yes, people can't just go vigilante on people and whatever, but there's still a part of you that feels good about it. And I feel like Olivia kind of gets that too. Like, she's upset at the fact that she has to find justice for this rapist. She's like, why don't we just, like, leave him be? Like, he's dead now. We just move on. But, you know, she has a job to do. But anyway, they go back to the murdered dude's wife, whatever. And she's like, you lied. You said he was from the Czech, because I guess he was, like, an illegal immigrant or whatever. But she's like, I didn't really want to, like, reveal anything about his past or whatever. And she's like, he was a war criminal. He raped and killed many people. And, you know, Elliot's, like, trying to, like, calm her down, but she's getting pissed. She's like, how do you not know who this was? How do you not know who your husband was? You have a child with him. You're about to have a second child with him. And I'm like, I'm sitting here and I'm thinking, you know, how did she not know? You know, a lot of the times when you see the show, it's a lot of the times it's like husbands are the ones that are going around raping women, and you're like, how does the wife not know what he's doing? And then at the same time, you're just like, even if they did know, what were they supposed to do? He could kill her, he could rape her, he could do a lot of things, you know. Maybe she's just protecting herself and her children. But this woman kind of just seemed like she was like, oh, he's changed, he's not that person anymore. And I'm like, ugh, okay, after hearing all the stuff that he has done to all those people, I don't necessarily feel like he's changed, and I don't think you can change that much. I mean, you gotta watch this episode, because I'm not really gonna describe it here, because it can get pretty graphic. But, I don't think someone can change like that, especially if you haven't seen, like, at least a therapist or have some sort of medication. You know, that seems a little bit much. You know, I don't think people can change for the better without some sort of psychiatrist to help them their way through, especially if it's that severe. But, you know, Olivia is, like, really hounding on this woman, you know, trying to get her to say more than she really knows. And Elliot has to, like, push her back. He's like, look, you need to stop. You know, she doesn't know anything. We gotta go. They leave, and Olivia is just pissed and irate and mad about all of this. And Elliot's like, look, I can't. I know you feel bad about this, but you cannot pick your victim. You just can't. You know, this is what we have, and we gotta do our job. And they're not particularly happy about it. So anyway, they go visit more victims, and they find this woman who's an architect, and they see her with her son, and they look at this boy, and he looks exactly the same as the murder victim's son. And she's kind of just like, Olivia's just looking at this little boy, and she's like, that's his little boy, you know? This child was probably conceived while she was being, like, raped in Serbia. And she kind of sees that as a big motive for murder. And honestly, I do too. So Elliot's like, man, I'm gonna take it. We're gonna head home. We're gonna leave these people alone for a night because it's getting kind of late. And Olivia goes and finds her at her job, because I guess she worked late nights or whatever. And she, goes to talk to her, and she says, you know, I need to look at your hands, because she wants to see if, like, one of her nails is off, because I'm pretty sure you can't really get that fixed instantly. But there's nothing there. But she knows that she's one of the two women in the car, because there's two women, you know, it's not necessarily going to be hers. But she tells her story, which, like I said, I'm not going to tell you about it here. You have to watch the episode. But it's pretty heartbreaking. And it's the kind of thing that does still happen even today in a lot of foreign countries. And I think the show wanted you to understand that these people that immigrate to America aren't necessarily, you know, criminals or whatever. You know, they're people escaping their own pain, and they come here and they work legally. A lot of them work legally, and a lot of them pay taxes. And I think what they wanted to show you is that their stories are what brought them here, and that they do deserve, you know, some sort of asylum here. So anyway, it's the next day, and Elliot is in, like, a classroom with his wife, and they're talking to, like, I think one of his daughter's teachers, which is kind of telling you that he's, like, really into his family life, which I like. You know, even though that he's a cop and he doesn't have a lot of time on his hands, he still takes time out of his day to go see his daughter's teachers with his wife. You know, it's a nice showing of how dedicated he is to work and to his family. But even while he's talking to this teacher, you know, his phone rings, which is it's his work. You know, he's gotta take it. And even though that he's involved in his family life, he does have to do his job, which can take him away from his family. And his wife seems, you know, decently okay with it. And so Elliot's on the phone, and I'm assuming that he's on the phone with Olivia, and Olivia tells him what she did. You know, she went to see the victim without him, and he's kind of pissed, because, you know, she shouldn't have really gone off on her own like that. But when he tells her that she's pissed, like, he's not necessarily too mad on the phone, he just yells a little bit. His wife looks at him, and in that scene you can kind of tell that she's kind of a little bit worried that his job is taking over a bit. But you know, throughout the show you can see how understanding she is. And I want to draw a comparison between her and a character in Criminal Minds, but I think I'm gonna make that a whole video in itself, so I guess you can look out for that one. But you know, you can tell that she cares that he has such a great job. You know, his job is literally protecting the women and children. Well, not necessarily the women and children, but everybody of sex crimes. But let's not lie here. A lot of sex crimes involve women, and that sucks. But you know, he's out there protecting people, and they obviously have a decent enough money for their family. So I think she's supporting him in the fact that he loves his job and he's also bringing in pretty decent money. Anyway, we cut to a scene with Olivia eating dinner with her mother, which, as a person who hadn't watched SVU from the beginning at first, because, you know, I wasn't really old enough to watch it when it first came out, obviously, but since I had watched later seasons before I watched this one, it was really weird seeing her mom. And I'm not going to tell people why, because I don't know, some people may not know what happened or whatnot, so I'm not going to leave any spoilers, but it was weird seeing her. You know, they're having a conversation, and they're talking about the case, which is telling me that she has a decent relationship with her mother where she can talk about it, or at least she's trying to. And it's like a nice fancy looking restaurant. And, you know, the mother's like, do you think one of the victims did it? And she's like, yeah, I really do. I really think she did it. I mean, she had that kid, you know. She probably definitely killed him. And her mother's like, well, you know, I mean, yeah, a lot of people do things for their children, but you don't necessarily think that she could really do that to somebody. And Olivia, she's like, no, she was raped by this man. I mean, I would have thought you of all people would understand. And I'm like, you of all people? Ooh, what happened to your mother? And the mother's like, you know, I understand, but it doesn't mean I condone it, you know. And Olivia basically reveals that her mother was raped. And in this scene, you find out Olivia's origin, that her father was the rapist that raped her mother, and that, you know, she decided to keep her. And she really identifies with one of the victim's sons because he is exactly what she is to her mother, you know. He's the product of his mother's rape. And I think that's part of the reason why she doesn't want to prosecute these women, because she feels like they're all her mother in a sense, you know. She doesn't feel like they deserve that. They've been through a lot. But then her mother says, you know, where would you be if I had done that to your father? You know, I would be in jail. You would be in the foster system. Do you think that would be a good idea? You know, do you think that's a good idea for the children? And Olivia doesn't really know what to say to that. You know, she kind of just looks at her mother and holds her hand. And in this scene, you can see that she has a lot of compassion for her mother and these women. But she also understands that, you know, you can't just kill people, but it hurts because, you know, these women went through a lot. And just for him to walk around and go free and not get punished himself, it doesn't really seem fair. It cuts to this new scene where Olivia is sitting at her desk, fidgeting with a pencil, which basically means that she's a little unsettled. She doesn't really know what she's doing right now. And Elliot comes in and he says, well, okay, do you think that woman, I think her name is Martha, the woman with the child, you know, do you think that she killed Stefan? And she straight up lies and says no. Elliot does not believe her for a second. I mean, why would you? I mean, obviously, you know, obviously she believes that she does, and he knows what she's doing. He knows that she's trying to protect these women because she genuinely believes that it's not right to prosecute them. But, eventually Elliot gets her to admit it, and they go together to meet another victim of the rape. And she works at this, I think it's like a restaurant or something, and, they're talking to her, and she kind of says a weird alibi that doesn't necessarily make sense. It's like if you've been a cop, you can tell when it's like not quite right in an alibi. And the writers kind of really made it seem, they tried to make sure that the way that she delivered her lines was kind of in a I'm lying kind of way, but I'm trying to hide it, which I think the actress did pretty well. I mean, it was a little obvious, but I think they needed to do that, because if it was too subtle, you would have believed it. But I think what they did with her character was pretty well done. But so anyway, Olivia and Elliot are looking at her hands, and one of her hands has like a bandage on it, and the other hand has a chipped, like, it looks like her nail is like completely gone, but it looks like the rest of her nails are acrylic nails, so I guess that was an acrylic nail. But anyway, one of them is off, and it has the same nail polish that the nail polish on the fingernail in the back of the taxi had. So they're like, okay, this girl literally did it. But at the same time, that nail could have been there for months, you know? You never really know. Or not months, more like weeks. But, you know, the nail could have been there for a while. So they don't really have anything that can really stick. He's kind of really trying to make it seem like that alone can just be like, oh, they don't really know, you know? They couldn't have possibly done it. Like, she's really, really trying to make sure that these women don't get in trouble. And I'm like, look, man, there's a lot of evidence. And there's a lot of, it's, you know, we're all pretty sure that they did it. Elliot is pretty certain too, but he knows from talking to the ADA that, you know, you need more evidence. You're gonna probably need a confession. So he basically sets up this plan where he arrests Martha, the first woman with the child, and is like, oh, we have eyewitness testimony seeing her get in with the car with the victim. Of course, he's kind of lying, considering that the Sikh dude from the last episode said that he saw them, but he didn't necessarily see their faces, so he couldn't really ID them. But Elliot kind of lied and said that, you know, they had a positive ID to get her to think that they have more evidence than they do. Olivia at this time is not feeling too great about it. You can see it in her face that she's not happy with arresting this poor woman. But, you know, they're reading her Miranda rights, but you can just see in her face that she's just like, I really wish I didn't have to do this. But, you know, that's their job. They gotta do it, no matter how bad they want these people to get away. I think that's part of the reason why I like Olivia so much, considering she is very much into her job. You know, she will always do the right thing, no matter what. And, it makes her more of a trustworthy person in the show, you know. There's no way she's ever gonna perjure herself. There's no way she's gonna, you know, mess with somebody. She's not gonna do anything like that. She's gonna be like a straight and narrow cop. She's not gonna do anything wrong. And I think that makes her a great character. I think it makes her like a superhero, you know, like she's too great, but I think it's great for the show. So anyway, they go in to grab the second woman, and the second woman, you know, has this look on her face like, oh, they don't have enough evidence. But then she looks out the window and they see that they have the first lady, and she's like, oh crap, you know, they probably know. So she picks up a knife and like holds it up in the air, and, you know, Elliot pulls out his gun. He's like, whoa, 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 don't do anything crazy. At this moment, I'm thinking, okay, you can't really shoot somebody who's probably gonna stab themselves, because the way that she's holding it looks like she's just gonna, you know, stab herself in the stomach. And I'm like, I really don't think the gun's helping, but I get it. It's probably police protocol. But anyway, she's like about to stab herself. And I totally forgot to tell you about her story, because her story isn't as graphic, but, you know, just getting to the, you know, just telling you the basics of it. Basically, the guy that died in the beginning, literally, like, killed her entire family in front of her and, like, raped her. And she made it here. So anyway, she holds up this knife and she just stabs herself. And as she's dying, you know, Elliot's like trying to save her. You know, he's holding onto her wound and she's like, just let me die. And then he reaches in, like, he leans in closer and she whispers something to him. And, you know, she's just gone. She dies right there. Then it cuts to the first lady confessing to what had happened, and the ADA is like, look, man, I'm not about to put this woman in prison. You know, we'll plead to Man 2, but under severe emotional distress. I'll put a link to what Man 2 is in the description. But anyway, she gets 18 months in a psychiatric facility, which I think is better than the alternative. So they leave, and she's going to this, you know, the facility or whatever. And the captain calls them into the office. And he is mad. He's mad as hell. Because he's like, look, you guys didn't go into all of the facts of this case, because apparently somebody called to see when he was working at the time that he died, like a couple of days before. Supposedly that was supposed to be the person that, killed him. Like, the way that the first woman said that the murder went down is that, they got into the taxi, they saw him, they remembered the rape, and then they just started killing him, which would mean it was severe emotional distress. But the problem is that if someone called to see when he was working that day, that meant it was premeditated, which means she would probably go to jail. But they didn't go into that call. Now, the captain is mad because he's like, you should have gone into that. You should have done your complete police work. You can't overlook these things. And at this moment, you're thinking, wait, I thought Olivia was supposed to be this perfect, cop. She's not supposed to be like that, But it's like, it's one of those exceptions. She says, I just feel like we did something that can help us sleep at night. And at this point, you're like, okay, at this point, she really didn't deserve to go to jail. And can we just pretend? And the captain's like, this is your one free time. Your one free time. If this happens again, this isn't gonna just slide over my head. At this point, even though that I know that she's a straight and narrow cop, and that she's like a superhero in this job, I still feel like it's okay for her to have that, I wouldn't say mistake, that one time thought that she would let somebody go like that. Because, at least she's still getting help. The help that she needed a long time ago. To be honest, I think we can all really tell that this is really going to be that one and only exception. But anyway, at this moment, they leave the office, and Elliot looks at Olivia, and Olivia asks, what did that woman say before she died? The woman that killed herself. He said, I just want to be with my family. And the phone rings, and, that's it. That's the end of the case. Life goes on, and, the black screen comes on, and it says, executive producer Dick Wolf, and that's that. And it makes you sad because you feel like it was a sad ending for most of these victims. Well, all of these victims, really. But half of you feels like, well, at least they got justice in some sort of weird way. That's the end of the episode, and I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you guys watch it for yourselves. And I'll see you on the flippity flip. Alright, everybody, thanks for watching. If you like what you saw here in the past 3 episodes, please click on the subscribe button. I would love to have more subscribers. If you want to watch the previous episode, click on the lower hanging scale. If you want to watch the next episode, click on the higher hanging scale. And I will be posting more next week. That is it for this week. But next week I will be back. And see you on the flippity flip.